At dawn in Kenya's Maasai Mara reserve, the scene unfolds like a living painting no artist could ever rival. The first rays of sunlight slice through the sprawling grasslands, bathing the meadows in a golden shimmer that stirs the wild creatures awake. Birds fill the air with their cheerful chatter, weaving a natural symphony with the soft whisper of the breeze. But today, something feels off. The air hangs heavy, thick with tension, as if nature itself is holding its breath, waiting for an unseen event to break the stillness. Jengo, a veteran ranger with over a decade of service at Maasai Mara, picks up on this strange shift. Perched atop his weathered Land Rover, his keen eyes sweep across the grasslands. To Jengo, this isn't just a job, it's a calling. He's a guardian, a link between humanity and the untamed wild. His sun-bronzed skin, curly hair, and steady calm mark him as a living testament to those who devote their lives to Africa's natural wonders. This morning, Jengo guides a group of eager young interns, all buzzing with excitement to dive into the world of wildlife. As their vehicle rumbles through predator territory, Jengo suddenly raises a hand to halt them. Beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient acacia tree, a sight stops his heart cold. A massive male lion lies still, its golden fur matted with blood. Deep, jagged wounds tell the tale of a brutal fight it barely survived. But what freezes Jengo in his tracks isn't just the lion, it's the towering white rhinoceros standing nearby. There's no trace of aggression or fear in its stance. Instead, it gazes at the lion with an odd, quiet worry. Its big, round eyes lock onto the wounded beast, and every so often, it lets out a heavy sigh, as if sharing the lion's pain. Why? Would a rhino care about a lion's fate? The question gnaws at Jengo, hinting at a wild mystery waiting to be unraveled. Without hesitation, Jengo snatches his radio, his voice sharp yet steady. "Rescue team, get to my position under the big acacia near the Talek River now. We've got a badly injured male lion needing urgent help." He tucks the radio away and turns back to the scene. The lion lies limp, blood from a gaping shoulder wound seeping into the parched grass. Yet it's the rhino that keeps pulling. His attention. Unlike its kind, known for their solitary ways, it doesn't budge. Those soulful eyes stay fixed on the lion, and soft sighs mingle with low rumbles from its throat, as if it's speaking to the lion, or maybe even to Jengo. As they wait for help, Jengo studies the rhino closely. The afternoon light dances across its thick grey hide, catching on a long curved scar along its right flank. Something about it tugs at his memory. He frowns, digging through the past. Years ago, he'd joined a mission to free animals from poachers' snares. Among them was a young rhino, its side torn open by a cruel wire. His team nursed it back to health and set it free. Could this be that same one? Jengo wonders, his pulse quickening. But the lion's labored breathing snaps him back. There's no time to linger on the thought. 15 minutes later, the roar of engines cuts through the silence. The rescue team rolls in, armed with medical gear, tranquilizers, and first aid kits. They spring into action, but as they near the lion, the rhino lurches forward. Its hulking frame plants itself between the team and the injured animal. Ears twitching, head dipped, not hostile but fiercely protective. "Hold up!" Jengo yells, motioning the team back. He steps toward the rhino, hands open, voice low and soothing. "We're here to save it. Easy now." Miraculously, the rhino seems to get it. With a single snort, it retreats a few steps, though its watchful eyes never waver. The team gets to work under the rhino's steady gaze, sedating the lion, stitching its wounds, and checking its vitals. Jengo lingers near the rhino, feeling the weight of its tension, its curiosity. A thought takes root and won't let go. This rhino and this lion are tied by something extraordinary, a bond he's only just starting to glimpse. Jengo sat quietly in a corner of the reserve, the faint glow of the desk lamp casting shadows. Over the dusty files, the old pages rustled under his fingers as if whispering forgotten secrets. Suddenly, a black and white photo slipped out from the stack. Two young animals, a small lion with wild eyes and a tiny rhino with a budding horn, trapped together in a cramped cage. Beside it, a scrawled note. 2010 smuggling case, rescue after storm. Jengo's heart raced as though he had just touched a fragment of a past he never knew existed. 10 years ago, a smuggling ring had swept through the African grasslands, kidnapping young creatures to sell to wealthy collectors. Among them were two of nature's children, a lion cub and a baby rhino. They were thrown into the same iron cage, where sunlight was just a faint streak through the cold metal bars. Their tiny legs trembled, and their weak cries echoed amid the smugglers' mocking laughter. Then, on a fateful night, as the smugglers' convoy crossed a desolate stretch, the sky unleashed its fury. A terrifying storm descended, with thunder roaring like it would tear the night apart. Rain poured down in torrents, and a fierce bolt of lightning struck the vehicle carrying the animal's cage. The explosion shattered the cage, and in that chaotic moment, the two small creatures bolted from their prison. They ran, stumbling through the howling wind and blinding rain, not knowing where they were going, only that they had to survive. Jengo pictured the scene, tears welling up unexpectedly. The lion cub, though terrified, roared tiny roars to fend off the darkness. The baby rhino, weak but determined, struggled to keep pace beside him, an unlikely companion in their shared ordeal. Amid the storm they found each other, not through words but through the raw instinct to survive. Together they navigated the harrowing hours, dodging death's grasp until they vanished deep into the forest, unseen by anyone. The records noted that days later, a rescue team found them, exhausted but inseparable. They were nursed back to health and released into the wild when they were strong enough. Jengo paused, realizing that the long scar on the rhino's back was a remnant of the iron cage, and the lion's deep gaze held memories of the friend who had stood with him against the dark. He closed the file, his heart heavy yet strangely warmed. Now he understood why the rhino always shielded the lion in times of danger. It wasn't just protection, it was a promise etched into their beings from those days of suffering, a miraculous friendship born from adversity. Jengo stood, filled with resolve to safeguard not only these two creatures, but also their beautiful story of survival and hope. Under the cover of night, a group of illegal hunters slipped into the Maasai Mara reserve. They moved like ghosts, equipped with night vision goggles, silenced rifles, and sharp daggers. Their targets, the white rhino, whose horn was worth millions on the black market, and the majestic male lion, whose pelt would become a trophy for a wealthy collector. Leading them was a tall man with a scar running down his left cheek, his eyes burning with vengeance whenever he spoke of the reserve. Years ago he had been captured by rangers, losing a brother in the clash, and now he was back for revenge and profit. Meanwhile, at the ranger station, Jengo and his team were resting after a long day of patrols. The flickering oil lamp cast shadows on their weary but determined faces. Suddenly the door burst open, and a young ranger named Kiptai rushed in, drenched in sweat. "I saw strange lights near the eastern woods, close to the Talek River." Jengo's brow furrowed, a sense of dread creeping in. He grabbed his radio, trying to contact outside support, but only static and the howl of wind came through. A massive storm was approaching faster than expected, severing all communication with the outside world. Unable to wait, Jengo ordered the team to gear up. They grabbed rifles, flashlights, and raincoats, charging out into the night. As the jeep rolled forward, rain began to fall, fat drops smacking the windshield, quickly turning into a torrential downpour. The dirt roads turned to mud, slick and treacherous, while thunder rumbled, threatening to split the sky. At the forest's edge they found tire tracks and spent bullet casings, clear signs of poachers. Jengo split the team. One group followed, him deeper into the woods, the other skirted the riverbank. But the storm tested them relentlessly. Gusts snapped branches, and the deluge blurred their vision. Meanwhile, the poachers had spotted the rhino and the lion. The two animals stood side by side under an ancient baobab tree, seeking shelter from the storm. The rhino snorted, its ears drooping, while the lion growled, sensing the approaching threat. The lead poacher signaled his men, using the thunder to mask their footsteps. He whispered into his radio, "Tonight, we take both." They raised their guns, aiming first at the rhino. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, cutting through the wind. Jengo heard it, his heart skipping a beat. "Move!" he shouted, leading his team toward the sound. The slick forest floor tripped them up, but Jengo pressed on. When they arrived, he saw the rhino collapsed, blood pooling on the wet grass and the poachers readying their knives. The lion had vanished into the shadows. Jengo drew his gun and bellowed, "Stop right there!" The poachers whirled around, stunned, to see rangers braving the storm. The leader smirked, raising his rifle. "You think you can stop me, Jengo?" The air was thick with tension, strung tight like a bowstring. Rangers and poachers faced off, weapons locked on each other. Then, from the shadows, the lion burst forth, its furious roar splitting the night as it leaped onto a poacher, sending him sprawling. Chaos erupted. Jengo lunged forward, grappling with another poacher, while his team fought to overpower the enemy. The leader, though wounded in the arm, still tried to take aim at the rhino. But the lion was there again, sinking its teeth into his leg and dragging him down into the mud. Panic seized the poachers. Some bolted into the forest, abandoning their groaning leader. Jengo and the rangers rushed to tend to the rhino, but before they could catch their breath, a deafening roar filled the air. He looked up to see floodwaters from the Talek River surging toward them, sweeping trees and rocks in their path. The storm had burst the river's banks. The rhino was too, weak to flee, and the water was rising fast. Jengo clenched his fists, glancing at the lion standing protectively by its friend, then turned to his team. "We leave no one behind." Together they hoisted the rhino, but the flood was closing in, roaring as if to swallow them whole. The storm raged across the vast grasslands, wind-whipping sheets of rain that blurred the world into a white haze. Under the pitch-black sky, the poachers moved like ghosts, using nature's fury to mask their attack. They set sharp steel traps and strung nets along the paths, preparing to hunt the two animals hiding somewhere in the dark. The leader, his eyes cold and calculating, whispered to his men, "They can't escape in this weather, ready your guns." Their shadowy figures melted into the underbrush, waiting for the moment to strike. Beneath the ancient rain-soaked tree, the lion and the rhino huddled against the storm. The lion, exhausted from the earlier battle, fought to keep its eyes open, ever watchful. Blood oozed from its shoulder wound, and every movement drew a soft groan. Suddenly it lifted its head, nostrils flaring as it sniffed the damp air, a sati. Faint scent of metal and human sweat hung close. Without hesitation, the lion let out a deep, resonant roar that cut through the wind, a desperate warning to its companion. The rhino, ears perked, instantly sensed the danger. It snorted, its massive body tensing as it prepared to move. Without wasting a second, the rhino burst from its shelter, its powerful legs churning the waterlogged earth. It spotted the steel traps and nets set in its path and, with terrifying strength, rammed them with its horn and trampled them underfoot. The sound of shattering metal mingled with the thunder, creating a chaotic symphony. Wires snapped, traps splintered beneath its might. But the poachers remained unfazed. They had planned carefully, lying in wait behind the rocks, biding their time. From a nearby thicket, a poacher emerged, rifle in hand, his sights locked on the rampaging rhino. He squeezed the trigger, ready to fire. But in that split second, the lion, though weakened, sensed the lethal threat. Driven by instinct to protect its friend, it let out one final roar and charged, its gaunt body closing the perilous gap. It slammed into the poacher, causing the gun to discharge wildly, the bullet lodging in a nearby tree. The poacher stumbled, back, panicked, and drew a dagger, plunging it deep into the lion's side. The lion roared in agony as fresh blood poured from its new wound, mixing with the rain. But it refused to yield. Its sharp teeth clamped down on the poacher's arm, forcing him to drop the knife and scream in terror. The rhino, hearing its friend's cry, wheeled around and charged like an unstoppable force, goring another poacher, who was closing in. Amid the storm, the scene descended into chaos. Gunshots, roars, the clash of metal, all blending with the relentless rain and thunder. The lion, utterly spent, collapsed to the ground, its breath shallow and labored. Blood from its wounds spread across the waterlogged earth, a dark crimson stain. The rhino stood over it, eyes blazing, ready to face down anyone who dared approach. From a distance, the poacher leader, despite his injured leg, raised his gun with a snarl. "I'll finish you both." But before he could pull the trigger, a terrifying roar filled the air. The floodwaters from the nearby river were surging in, carrying debris and threatening to engulf everything. The battle between man, beast, and nature was only just beginning to escalate. The storm gradually subsided, the last raindrops falling gently onto the soaked grasslands. The ranger team, sweat mingling with rainwater, quickly subdued the group of hunters. Ropes tightly bound the poachers' hands, each one tied up under the cold gaze of the lion and the imposing figure of the rhino. The lion, though bleeding from its shoulder and breathing heavily, still growled softly, pacing around the subdued men like a king guarding his territory. The rhino stood motionless, its deep eyes staring straight ahead, its sharp horn glinting in the faint lightning, enough to make anyone with thoughts of resistance think twice. In the distance, a final bolt of lightning struck, igniting a small fire among the dry bushes. The red flames threatened to spread, but the timely rain poured down, extinguishing each spark. White smoke rose, mingling with the scent of wet earth, as if nature was healing its own wounds. The rangers breathed a sigh of relief, their eyes reflecting hope as the double danger finally passed. But attention quickly turned to the lion. It limped, each step a painful groan. Jengo, the ranger leader, approached, his voice gentle like a breeze. "You've done well, big guy, now let me help you." The lion looked up, its golden eyes weak but trusting. He drew a tranquilizer dart and gently shot it into the lion's thigh. As the animal slowly collapsed, the ranger team carefully placed it on a stretcher, preparing to take it to the rescue station. The rhino, as if understanding the situation, followed behind. Its heavy footsteps echoed on the waterlogged ground, its eyes never leaving its friend. It couldn't speak, but its worry was clear in every snort and slow headshake. At the rescue station, the veterinary team immediately got to work. They cleaned the lion's wounds, stitched the deep gashes, and administered antibiotics to prevent infection. Inside the room, bright lights shone on the motionless body of the once mighty animal, now looking strangely fragile. Outside, the rhino stood waiting. It refused to leave, despite the ranger's attempts to lure it with food or water. It just stood there, its massive shadow cast on the station wall, eyes fixed on the closed door. Occasionally, it let out a low, rumbling sound as if asking, "How is my friend?" Jengo, standing beside it, gently placed a hand on its thick hide and whispered, "He'll be fine." "You're really patient." The sun rose, dispelling the gloomy clouds. After many hours, the lion awoke. It blinked, growled softly, then slowly stood up under the watchful eyes of the doctors. As the station door opened, it stepped outside. Sunlight glinting on its damp but still majestic fur. The rhino immediately approached, lowering its head. The two animals touched noses, a silent but deeply meaningful moment. The reunion of friends who had crossed the line between life and death together. Together, they left the rescue station, walking slowly but steadily. They climbed a nearby hill, where the endless grasslands stretched out before them. A gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of grass. Golden sunlight enveloped them as the lion and the rhino stood side by side, their silhouettes bold against the sky. They gazed into the distance where past trials were now just memories. Their friendship, forged through storm and blood, became an eternal symbol of resilience and hope in the wilds of Maasai Mara. As the late afternoon sun bathed the Maasai Mara grasslands, the lion and the rhino stood atop the hill, their silhouettes stark against the golden sky. They had weathered the storm together, faced ruthless poachers, and now they stood here, stronger than ever. The lion, though still limping, held its head high, eyes proud. The rhino, its horn gleaming in the sunlight, snorted softly as if conversing with its friend. They needed no words. Their silence was proof of a bond forged through fire and blood. In the distance, Jengo and the ranger team stood quietly, witnessing the sacred moment. They knew this story was not just about survival, but about the power of unity between species, between humans and nature. The storm had passed, but the friendship of these two wild creatures would forever be a symbol of hope and courage. The story of the lion and the rhino is not just a thrilling adventure, but also carries profound messages. It reminds us that in the wild, friendship can blossom in the most unexpected places, transcending the boundaries of species and instinct. The cooperation between the lion, the rhino, and humans proves that when we stand together, we can face any challenge, whether from nature or heartless poachers. Moreover, this story serves as a wake-up call about the state of poaching and the loss of wildlife habitats. Every day, thousands of species face extinction due to human greed, but through the example of Jengo and the ranger team, we see that with courage and determination, we can protect these precious creatures. Let this story inspire each of us to take action, no matter how small, to safeguard nature. If this story has moved you, join us on the Animal Kisa channel. Here, you'll discover inspiring tales from the wild, from thrilling adventures to heartwarming moments of friendship across species. Each video is an educational journey, deepening your understanding of nature's wonders and the importance of conservation. Subscribe to Animal Kisa to never miss a story. By hitting that subscribe button, you're not just following meaningful content, you're helping spread the message of wildlife protection to more people. Join us in safeguarding our planet's four-legged friends. Subscribe today and become part of a nature-loving community.